Bruce, where were you born?
I was born in Ann Arbor, Michigan, of all places.
And where'd you grow up?
Upstate New York in Whitesboro, right next to Utica. Went to high school in Amherst, New Hampshire. Went to college at Boston University. They actually let me graduate. Got a job in television right out of school. Got fired because my boss and I hated each other. Went to Florida.
Some things never change.
Yeah. Went to Florida, slept on my mom's couch. 3 days later, I had a job at the ABC affiliate in Orlando. I was there for 5 years. And then I came here, and that was 31 years ago. And I was at WPT for 29 years, and 29 and 3/4 years, and then I retired. And now I work for the Freedom from Religion Foundation.
Way to go. And he was here.
Excuse me?
He was here back on May 30th and taped the Lieutenant Fazekas for us. And that's what it says on your hat. What does it say on your hat?
Keep
calm?
Keep calm. We'll fix it in post.
All right. So as Bruce mentioned, this is his 5th presentation here at Wednesday Night the Lab. 2 were on the future of television, and 3 are now going to be on the future of solar power. Would you please join me in welcoming Bruce Johnson back to Wednesday Night the Lab?
Okay, let's get it out of the way first. Who here already has solar panels? Me. Yay!
How many is that? About 7?
Yeah. What are the rest of you waiting for? Is the question. Pardon me? Well, I have an answer for that. It's not. It's unfortunately it's oversubscribed at the moment, but there'll be more. We'll get there. It's near the end. I fully admit to being a geek, and somebody asked me a minute ago whether I had done this lecture before, and I've done. This is basically a continuation of a continuation. The first show was on September 5th, 2012, and the second show was on March 18th, 2015. 18th, 2015. If you want to go watch these things, go ahead. I was a lot heavier back then. It was really strange. The content in there is still current. I actually copped a lot of it from the second one for this one because actually a lot of things haven't changed per se. It's just evolved. But I'm a geek. I fully admit it. I love technology. I'm really, really into the technological world. So the first thing you have to do when you give a technological lecture is talk about Broadway. How many people in this crowd are familiar with or have seen Hamilton? The rest of you, scratch your pennies together and go see it. I'm not exaggerating when I tell you it is a life-changing experience. I saw this with my daughter, and it was like, and I listen to it on my Alexa all the time. I mean, it's just got a message that is wonderful, and while it is fictionalized, it's great. It gives you most of the details of what Alexander Hamilton's life was really about, and Aaron Burr, of course. But the thing is nice about it is that there are accessible themes that weave through this. One of which is look around at how lucky we are to be alive right now. Now, especially this week, I can see where that would be very, very hard to swallow. I mean, one of the nice things about not working in the public sphere anymore, not being in the news department anymore, is I can have opinions now. And wow, I've said some stuff this week that I couldn't believe. But when you look at the aggregate of things, we are living in a golden age, a totally golden age. It's true. And I could go down all sorts of paths right now. I could talk about crime statistics. I mean, all the things that people get absolutely wrong. I said a minute ago I worked for the Freedom from Religion Foundation, and one of the things I did was shot an interview with a guy named, oh geez, I can't remember his name now. He's the honorary president of the FERF, and his name is, he's from Harvard, and he wrote a book called Enlightenment Now, Steven Pinker. If you haven't read Enlightenment Now, read it, because it shows you all the statistics of life's all the parts of life that have gone on from then till now, and everything is getting better and better and better and better, even though people are convinced it's getting worse and worse and worse. It's true. Things are getting better. And now we're going to talk about how technology is getting better on your rooftop and in your cars and everything else. So here we go. Once again, same as 5 years ago, I have 4 points of contact with MG&E. I am a solar energy producer. I own an electric car, soon to own 3 electric cars. I'm a customer like all of us who live in Madison. And I'm a stockholder too. Actually, I have a 5th point of contact that I didn't put on there because it's kind of tenuous. MG&E is running electric car shows now for people around their neighborhoods, and every time I drive up there in my electric car, they give me a $25 Visa gift card, which is kind of nice. I'll buy beer with it tonight if it comes down to that. They're having another one tomorrow night in Fitchburg at the Fitchburg Library if you'd like to come by and see a bunch of electric cars. I hope it doesn't rain. So anyway, how did we get here? How did I get here? This is my roof as it appeared on March 8th, 2015. You'll see the date is from several years ago, but the fact of the matter is, other than I have a weather station up top there now, nothing has changed. I'm out of roof space. There's no roof there's no usable roof here that will catch enough sun to make it worth putting anything else on there. So it's still kind of active. And if you look really closely down the corner right here, that's me, and that's my daughter who just graduated from La Follette. Time does fly. My roof is situated with the valley going north and south roughly, so you'll see that, since you really want to have a southern-facing exposure, neither these panels nor these panels are optimal, but when you split the difference, they come out okay. And it's not as perfect, not as great as it could be, but it's okay. This first system right here is 2,400 watts. Do I have to go through Ohm's law and what electricity is and how you measure it and stuff like that? I don't really want to, because I don't explain it well. But 2,400 watts is, at the time, it was a lot. The 17 panels right there, this was installed in 2007. That's 11 years ago now. Wow. This is my 11th year, I guess, of making electricity. Now, these things put out DC electricity, direct current, not like you get out of the wall, which is alternating current, AC. And depending on how hard the sun is shining, the voltage varies. But you fix that by using this, which is called a DC to AC inverter by a German company called SMA. It's called a Sunny Boy. I don't know why. It's about the dumbest name they could have applied to it. This turns the DC into AC and then syncs up with the grid and dumps it into the grid. This is what's called a grid intertied system. I don't have any batteries. I don't have any real backup. This is basically just to provide my input to the system so I can take it out at night. And it's not a one-to-one electron-to-electron exchange. It never could be. And the entire electrical grid all over the country and all over the world works the same way. When there's a lot of electricity over here, it flows that way, and it just goes back and forth. This is just a micro version of that, where if I make a lot, it's like water going out of a pipe. It goes into the pole behind my house and goes out to my neighbors. It's very common. It would be nice to have batteries. I dream of having batteries one of these days, but it doesn't make financial sense yet, and it probably won't for a while. I also have a hot water system here. This is pretty cool. It's, pardon the pun, it's 4 panels that have pipes going up and down like this, and they have an antifreeze solution that pumps through them, and then it comes down to this 80-gallon tank right here. And you can see that there's a pump right there which pumps the antifreeze around. It comes in and it goes into a coil inside that tank and heats up the water from the antifreeze. On March 9th, 2015, I had the temperature of 140 degrees, 80 gallons of 140 degree water in my basement. Just to show you that I didn't just copy everything from my last show. I shot this yesterday or the day before. It was 165 degrees. And I have to tell you, I know we're all supposed to be as conservation-minded as possible, but I'm addicted to a good hot shower. And when you can be in the shower and the water's coming down and you turn it off and you don't hear the water heater running, it's a kind of a good feeling. Now, the problem with the hot water thing is that I know it's cool, I know that it works, but it's basically impossible to get a handle on how much money you're saving with it. It's not like electricity where you can meter everything separately. I've got a gas stove, I've got a furnace, I've got the other water heater, I've got a gas fireplace. All of these things use gas in different ways, and you're not going to put a meter on every one of them. That would be kind of crazy. But you do have MG&E's website that shows you your relative gas use compared to other houses. And I am the solid line here. So except in December, when it was probably pretty cold, I tend to use less gas than other users. And in fact, in the summertime, like right here, I have had gas usage in the 1/10 of a therm, which they can barely measure. And the other thing is, of course, that the fixed fee for gas, I think, is like $25. which totally is, 20 times what I'm paying for gas. Now, no, let me be fair about this. And like I said, I've got a lot of different connections with MG&E. I don't hold that against them. I mean, a lot of, they really kind of blew it a couple of years ago when they said that the fixed fee for electricity was going to go to $65. They blew away 100 years of good press in one press release. But they realized the error of their ways. They came back down to 19 and stayed there now for a couple of years. The energy business is changing a lot, and they're flailing around figuring out how to make it work. But we'll talk more about them a little later. Now we're going to go back up on my roof. In 2012, my wife and I both decided we wanted to buy an electric car. And I figured, well, the 2,400 watts is not enough to make enough electricity to fill up the electric car. So we added 7 more panels at 250 watts apiece with microinverters. The electricity from these things does not go through that big gray box with the funny name. These have little inverters on the back. So basically speaking, the electricity from these just gets dumped right into the house system without having to be inverted in this industrial box. This is pretty cool. It's 1,750 watts. This is the footprint is, I'm trying to remember specifically. Actually, because these look like they're more powerful, but on a square inch basis, they're actually a little bit less powerful than my old panels, strangely. So here's what we got here. When I put in just the solar system, the first one in yellow, 2007, that was $18,000 after the rebates. By the way, and I'm telling everybody, put your solar on. There is a 30% federal tax credit you get on any energy upgrades you put to your houses. It's going away next year. Now, this rig right there cost $25,000 before my rebates. So I got a lot of money back, both from the feds and from Focus on Energy. Focus on Energy is not currently giving consumers anything that I know of. So the landscape varies a lot. But if you really want to do this and you want to get your 30% tax credit, jump on board. Now, like I said, $18,000 after rebates. I want you all to remember that number. It's going to come back later on in the show. So, okay, now we have the second system over there with $7,000 after rebates down to $4 a watt. And at this point, all I had was the federal rebates. There was no focus money then. So in 5 years, that came down. In 4 years, it says, with 4 or 5 years, it came down from $9.50 a watt without rebates to $7.51 a watt, $5.71 a watt with no rebates. That's a pretty good drop in a handful of years. So what am I going here next? Oh, that's what I did. So like I said before, we wanted to buy a car. We bought a 2012 Nissan Leaf. We were quite the pioneers in this business. It was purchased in June 2012. It had a 24 kilowatt hour battery, which, believe me, at the time sounded like a lot. It really wasn't. We drove for 50,000 miles in 5 years. It took basically no maintenance. I replaced the tires once. We rotated the tires every now and again. It had a bit of an annoying front end squeak when it was cold, but Nissan didn't know how to fix it, so I didn't, eventually I just gave up on that. But it was certainly no fatal flaw. By the time we got to 50,000 miles, we had lost about 20% of the battery capacity. So driving in the winter was really, really a cold affair. Although I will say these cars generally come with steering wheel heaters and seat heaters standard, which helps a lot because the heater in this car was like a hairdryer, and it used electricity like a hairdryer, and you could just literally see the range go as you were driving around in the winter. We drove around in mittens and big coats, and sometimes being a pioneer just isn't that much fun. But anyway, after 5 years, we were looking around for something else to buy. Hey, we bought a Nissan Leaf, go figure. And I'll tell you a story. I wish I could be able to tell you, everybody here, who here is even vaguely interested in having an electric car? You should have known me like a year ago, because this was the last year of this model of the Nissan Leaf. In the time between 2012 and 2016, this is the 2016 model, the battery had grown from 24 kilowatt hours to 30 kilowatt hours. The heater had turned from a hairdryer to a heat pump, which is insanely efficient. I mean, super efficient. You don't really feel bad turning in fact, the air conditioning is so efficient it barely shows up on the metering now. But they were blowing these out because this was the last model year of this type of the Leaf, and they gave me a no charge to charge card, which changed the way I drive my car entirely. I don't charge at home anymore, which makes an interesting effect on my electrical bill, which I think I will be able to remind me to tell you what really changed, strangely. So anyway, yeah, between this car being, well, the other thing was that to blow these things off a lot, not only did you get a no charge to charge card, you got a $10,000 buy down from Nissan. This car started at like $33,000, $10,000 off from Nissan, $7,500 from the feds as a tax credit. They gave me $4,000 for a Leaf that was probably worth $2,000. So I got this car brand new last year for about $14,000. And we've got 13,000 miles on it now. It runs like a dream. It doesn't have the front noise anymore. It's got a much better heater and a much bigger trunk too. They took the battery charger out of the trunk and put it someplace else. So now it really holds a lot of stuff. If you wanted to buy one of these used, I would recommend it. So here's what changed. The orange line was my electrical usage in 2014, before I had my no charge to charge card. And the green line is after I had my no charge to charge card. Well, you can pretty much obviously see that I don't charge the car at home anymore. I will talk more about car charging in a minute. So I was going to say, yes, what changed? This changed. It's amazing how somebody giving you a little free card that gives you free electricity will change what you do. Okay, so that pretty much catches us up to now. What's next? It used to be a little lonely in the having solar panels on your house world. Does anybody remember the lonely days? It wasn't really all long ago. I can't remember when this was, and I really searched hard on the web, but I couldn't find the article that I read that was talking about this crazy place called Madison, Wisconsin, that had a park down on the south end of this weird lake called Monona, called Thut Park. Is anybody here named Thut or related to the Thuts? Because I want to know where the name came from. And I read the article and it said the local utility, MG&E, and the city are talking about putting in solar-powered lights because it costs so much money to run cables to have electric light in this park. And I thought, yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm talking about 7-8 years ago now. Finally, I went down and looked at these things, and they're very, very cool. But this was like cutting-edge stuff. I mean, there was nothing out there. And I remember that, I'm going to show you my powers of digression. The solar panels are one super cool part about this thing, but there's something else that's super cool too. Who knows who these three guys are? I don't know their names. I apologize for that. But these are the three guys who shared the Nobel Prize for coming up with the blue LED, which is what makes all of this possible. We wouldn't have LEDs all over the world if these guys had not figured out how to make a blue LED so you could have the entire spectrum of light all at one time. Thank you, guys. I don't know who you are, but enjoy your $1 million. But I remember that the very first solar array I saw in Madison was these things that MG&E had put in down at Lakefront Park, Lakeside Park, Lake Farm Park, down by that other lake. I'm getting this hole in my brain, which is just getting bigger. So these, in my memory, these didn't used to be on trackers. They didn't move. They were mounted. And you got to guess these are so old. These are probably like 150-watt panels. So that's not a lot of juice. But at least they were looking into it way back then. And now I actually saw on their webpage, now they've installed trackers, and they're very, very precise about how much electricity these things can make as a research project. First place I saw solar panels in a real-world environment. Now they're just about everywhere. Up on the left here, top left, is my friend Ben Nelson in Oconomowoc. He has a website called 300mpg.org. He's very big on making electric cars. He made an electric car out of a Geo Metro back when we used lead acid batteries. Something that if I had had a 3-car garage, I would have done and regretted. Because once you build these things, you can't sell them. Nobody wants them. These two are on the east side on my bike ride to work. That one's on the west side. And the next one I will show you is like half a block down from the one on the lower right. And it's actually audio-visual. Let me see how I start this thing.
3.385 kilowatt DC system. It's 15 285 watt panels from Soneva. They have microinverters from Enphase on each one. Best day is just shy of 30 kilowatt hours. I think 29, I want to say, is the best we've done. Max peak generation's like 3.8 kilowatts. Last month we overgenerated. It decreased our overall bill, but I still owed like $8 for part of the service charge. I like the idea of generating my own power and using it, and not relying on other sources that are not as green or nice to the environment. Just think it's cool from an electrical perspective to take energy from the sun and put it to use directly. It's always nice having a lower bill.
That's Matt. He's a super geek. He was a hyper miler with his old Prius, and now he has a Tesla Model 3 and a Leaf, and he's a super nice guy. I take inspiration from this guy all the time. And I also, by the way, here's the other thing that's changed in the last couple of years. You know how I got that footage? I have a drone that cost me like $600, and I shot his interview on my phone, which looks better than the cameras I started out in television with, believe it.
Oh, yeah.
Oops, there we go. But it's not just homeowners. Businesses are getting solar as well. That's an electrical company there. I will be proud and say these two are solar, 15,000 watts of solar panels on my mother-in-law's farm in Fond du Lac, the Little Farmer. In the fall, I suggest you go up there. It's an apple orchard. They have the best, not just the best apple pies in the world, they have the best pies in the world. This is an electrical company it's a construction company. It's TDS Construction on the east side. And this, if you ever drive north on 151, up just south of Columbus, you'll see a windmill on the left-hand side. I stopped one time and talked to the guy about the windmill, and I said, well, I'm sort of into the solar thing. He goes, someday I'll put solar on. He really did. He put a lot of solar on his garage there. He said that the windmill by itself did like 40% of electricity, so I'm guessing he's probably making far more than he needs. Also, there's a storage facility on just north of McFarland that has this. Play, please. Hey, how'd I get this footage? He says that this panel, this set of panels, 100 and some panels, I think 170 panels, makes 90 to 95% of all the electricity he uses in all of his facility. Which, he said it cost him $100,000 after rebates, but, he'll make his money back. That's something I forgot to mention when I was showing you pictures of my house. I remember when I did the last lecture, I've saved the conclusion to the very, very end, and it got a lot of people mad because it made it sound like I was upset that my first system will never pay for itself. There's no two ways around it. I got in really, really early when stuff was really expensive. But I don't care. I mean, some people collect Corvettes. I make electricity. This thing will pay for itself, and systems that don't pay for themselves are getting rarer and rarer and rarer. Okay, advance. No, I don't know what to play it. I don't know what to advance. Oh, there's the button right there. Here are 5 pictures that my friends at Full Spectrum Solar sent to me. That's a apartment building in Racine with 140 kilowatts. Organic Valley Farms right here. It's a very low-res picture, but the entire roof of the building is covered. If you look at their website, they have a whole section devoted to their solar, their alternative energy stuff. They have windmills as well. City of Monona, 156K. Oregon Schools, 230. And Trinity Lutheran Church has 20 kilowatts. Hey, why not? It's not terribly expensive these days. Let's see. Oh, here's another one. You'll also notice that every fire and police station in Madison is supposed to have alternative energy on it. These 3 panels down here are on trackers. They're at the East Side Police Station a couple blocks from my house. That's Fire Station 13, which is on your way to Costco, from where I live. They have this stuff on the left-hand side. They also have all sorts of PVs on the right-hand side of the building, but you can't see it because, I'm on the ground. And they have hot water as well. And these hot water panels here are on the top of the new Fire Station 1 downtown. So yeah, we bought into that pretty well. So here's a question for you guys. I wish I had hidden this slide more. I'll just ask you. Where were you all on May 13th, 1991? Does anybody ever remember? In a minute, you'll remember where you were on that day. I guarantee it.
Oh, yeah.
Who remembers the grease fire? I was living a mile from there, and the wind was coming my way. I lived near Starkweather Creek, and I remember seeing literal rivers of butter and grease going down towards the lake. It was just bizarre, and it burned for days. I remember they had a rib fest. Somebody was putting on a rib fest. They had to cancel it because all of their meat went up in this fire, or it got prematurely cooked, I guess. So anyway, they could have just torn the whole thing down and left the Midwest cold storage people, but they didn't. They rebuilt, and then this is what they found out the other day. They have 741 kilowatts of panels on top of their system, on top of their roof there. It's only covering about half of what they could do. But the funny thing is, 2,000 panels only provides 17% of the electricity for a cold storage warehouse. That gives you a handle on how energy intense refrigeration really is. Because you got to figure if you're doing that much, they're trying to do it as efficiently as possible. But happy they're doing it. 17% is better than nothing, far better than nothing. But you know what? This feels like a really big system, doesn't it? Maybe not. Who's heard of Ikea? In Oak Creek, they just put on 4,700 panels. Actually, my friend Ben Nelson worked on this thing for a couple of days, and then he realized, I'm going to walk 500 miles, and he's like 45 years old. He doesn't want to do that, so he put on like 100 of these panels and said that was enough for him. Ikea is apparently putting solar panels on all of their new buildings. The one up in Minneapolis has a huge pile of them as well. You think that's big, right? So in my work for the Freedom from Religion Foundation last July, we inaugurated a Clarence Darrow statue in Tennessee at the courthouse where the monkey trial was. It was really cool. I mean, it's a great, if you ever heard of Zenos Fridakis was a sculptor. Super nice guy. You should look him up. He's hilarious. So anyway, I'm flying into Chattanooga, Tennessee. And I'm sitting on the window, looking out the door, and I just see this. And then I look a little more closely, and I see this. Can you see that? What do you think that is? That is the Volkswagen factory in Chattanooga. 66 acres of panels. 9.5 megawatts. Do you know that they're talking about putting a solar farm just at the end of the runway on 51 at the airport? I don't know. I heard Joe Parisi talking about it about a year ago. I don't know where it is right now. But that's 30 acres of panels we could have in Dane County. Things are fairly inexpensive. Now, I'm not going to, you might have noticed, I'm not drowning you guys in numbers this time, because quite honestly, it's been hard to find numbers. It's been pretty hard to get numbers on this stuff, hard numbers. But I will show you these three charts here. Solar deployment forecast, price of panels, and solar installations. These bars, the bars that are really, really tall, apparently reflect the fact that a lot of companies were afraid that the investment tax credit was going away, so they all poured all the money into their solar and installed it all at once. And I don't think it did, actually. It may in the future, but I think it came back. So you got a big spike right there. But, deployment is going up, price is coming way, way down. And, installations, this is 2016 right here, 2017. So it's all coming. It's all coming. So I'm going to go back to the cars. By the way, I should probably say, any questions? I mean, I know I mumble. I know I talk too fast. Sir?
So earlier when you were talking about your hot water heater system, so do you have two hot water heaters?
I do. I have a normal conventional gas hot water that the folks at Full Spectrum laughingly call the secondary. And believe me, in the wintertime, it's not the secondary.
So, okay, so the solar heated water heater, does that have is that purely just solar?
That's all it is. It has, by the way, I should have explained this when I was there. One of the pictures on that slide was a mixing valve. It's a thermostatic mixing valve. I mean, when you've got 170-degree water in your tank, you don't want that coming out of your shower. Unless you're cooking lobsters. So what it is, it's a mixing valve that takes hot water on this side and cold water on this side, and it has a thermostat inside it, and you turn a knob and you decide how hot you want the water to be. So I tell it to turn like 130, and then it goes from there and dumps into the secondary tank. And then it goes through that and comes out. So basically speaking, it's a preheater for the gas one. But if it's hot enough and you keep the water moving, the gas never starts. Now, to be fair, because you don't use a ton of hot water all the time, the gas does run once in a while, but not very often. Sir?
When you do these wattages for the various panels,
Yeah.
what exactly does that mean? Is that full on from?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's the rated max. And you never see it. I mean, my entire system is rated at 4.15 kilowatts instantaneous. I've seen it at 4.3 for about a millisecond. Most of the time, the best it gets, and the funny thing is, I say that tomorrow is the saddest day for the solar farmer, but actually in my situation, because of the slope of my roof and because of all the trees they have to fight with, my best time of the year is March, April, and May. Once the leaves come up, it gets much, much harder to do, and by the time September rolls around, I'm crying. I really would like to take an axe tool out of a couple of trees. I tell people laughingly, I'm the only person in Wisconsin who's actually rooting for the emerald ash borer. Ma'am? Yeah?
Is there an ideal slope or angle of the roof?
Actually, I think MG&E just said that their studies showed 45 degrees was good. I take that back. You should go to MG&E's site and find out. It's definitely not the 412 I've got. That's way too shallow. But having said that, I'm not going to put racks on my roof. It just wouldn't work.
So in the slide where you were citing the cost of your various panel structures on your roof, does that include the cost of the inverters?
Oh yeah, it's all up, everything.
It's and
installation,
labor to install,
permits, the whole thing.
A little earlier, you showed a picture of somebody who spent $100,000 and said it was going to pay for itself. It occurs to me that 16 cents a kilowatt hour is going to take a long time to pay for itself.
Well, it's even worse than that. I mean, honestly, once you, I'm getting ahead of myself. Here's the landscape. Because I was a pioneer, MG&E pays me now, and for another 4 years to go, 25 cents per kilowatt hour for every electron that falls off my roof. But that's not available anymore. Now what they do is they pay you full retail for all of your usage, or as I like to call it, avoided cost. And then everything you generate beyond that, they pay you 3 cents, which is wholesale, which sucks. No two ways around it. But it beats the alternative. And even with that reduction in payback, systems still pay for themselves. And I'll show you evidence of that in a little bit. Anybody else? I got 20 minutes. Okay, quickly.
You mentioned battery systems. If
yes, sir.
you'd like to have one.
I'd love to have one.
That you would like to have.
It doesn't pencil out yet, not quite. I mean, electricity would have to be a lot more expensive, and batteries have to be a little cheaper. Having said that, just because I'm a Tesla guy, I want to have a Tesla battery in my garage. Doesn't everybody?
Oh yeah.
Anybody else for a quick one? Sure, go.
Yeah. How did the Germans spell their brand name of Sunny Boy?
It's
with an O or a U?
It's just a dumb name. I mean, it's like, hey, Sunny Boy.
Okay. I was wondering if it was a play on words.
No, well, I think it's what passes for a play on words in German, maybe. Okay, let's go back to cars, quickly. Here's what else has changed. This is the new 2018 Nissan Leaf. I feel like it should be going like this. Vanna, tell them what they've won. It has a 45 kilowatt hour battery, which gives you 150 miles range, give or take. There'll be a bigger battery next year. This thing costs, roughly speaking, exactly what the cash cost would have been for the 2016 Leaf, which is about $32K. This has what's cool, one thing called one pedal driving, where basically speaking, when you push down the accelerator, you go faster. When you let it up, you slow down. Think about what that does for the life of your brakes. That's something else I never replaced on my 2012. Never had a brake problem, never touched the brakes, because basically speaking, we never used the brakes. Regenerative braking is a wonderful thing. Now, when I got the Leaf, the choices were basically Leaf, Chevy Volt, which is a lovely car, but I didn't want a car with an engine in it. I wanted a car with an electric motor in it. And basically very little else. But now there is a lot of competition. Now you can't read this, but this is the top. This is a list of the top selling cars so far in this year. The top 10 are the Tesla Model 3. For a car they can't seem to get to people, they're selling a lot of them. The Toyota Prius Prime. Anybody here got a Prius Prime? My daughter has the original version of this, which has an 11-mile electric range, but this version has like a 45-mile range, which is far better. Tesla Model S, Tesla Model X. These little things mean these are full electric cars and no motors. Chevy Bolt. Anybody got a Bolt? I saw a Bolt driving here as I was coming in. The Chevy Volt, which once again, lovely car, still needs gas. Nissan Leaf, getting better by the day. Nissan Honda Clarity plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. I think I've seen one, but there aren't a lot of them around. Ford Fusion Energy. I know somebody used to own one. I don't think they do. And then the BMW i3. I'm going to show you pictures of these things really quickly because I just forgot that I was going to do it. The Tesla Model 3 on the left there. Very nice. Prius looks like a Prius. Imagine that. Priuses look like Priuses. That's the Tesla Model S. My wife and I rented one 2 years ago and drove to Boston and back. It was hilarious. The Tesla Model X, there seems to be a snag in the financing, but my wife and I are scheduled to pick one up tomorrow. I wish I could have brought it today. This is the Chevy Bolt, 230-mile range, give or take. People who drive it love it. It's sort of a little hatchback thing, but does the job. Does the job rather well. I mean, and speaking as a guy who doesn't trust GM at all, after what they did to the EV1, this is a great step forward for those guys. And of course, the Chevy Volt on the right there, which is a hybrid, a long-range hybrid. And then we have the BMW i3, which has a couple of interesting features. It can come with a small engine that will recharge your battery when you get low, although it won't drive you too far because it's not allowed to have more than 3 gallons of gas in the tank at any given time. That's not a BMW thing. That's a U.S. government thing. Nobody seems to know why. The other two cool things about this is that it has suicide doors. It has, by the way, the loveliest interior of any car I've ever seen in my life. If you get to see an i3, look inside. It's just like origami all over the place. And the other thing is that the entire body and frame are made of carbon fiber. They say they can mold the interior frame of this thing on the assembly line in about 30 minutes. And they have marks all over the frame inside that if it gets in an accident and they got to replace a piece, you saw out at these lines and then slide a new piece in and glue it in, and it's stronger than it was when it got started. That is very, very, very much the future of cars. And one more thing. I talked about my mother-in-law who has those solar panels at her farm in Fond du Lac. This is her Tesla Model 3 that I have driven for a weekend, and believe me when I tell you, another life-changing thing. Driving one of these things is I'll say one thing only. You know how you step on the gas in your car and the engine goes zzz, and then you slowly go forward? There is a linear connection between the gas pedal on this thing and the motors, because you step on it, you're gone. I mean, I don't know how many people know Cottage Grove Road, but there's the bridge of 51. If you're going west, there's a red light, and I was going to try to just sneak through the yellow light to get through, and I put my foot on the gas a little bit, and the next thing I know, I'm flying through the Dairyland, which is about 1,000 feet down the road. It's like, so you got your electric car. Everybody's going to get their electric car, right? Everybody? Electric cars? Yes? Come on, yes. Where do you charge your cars? Used to be tough. Used to be very, very tough. This is my garage. It's as dirty as it looks. It's a mess. This is a post charger, just like they have at the library up there on Monroe Street. These two chargers are fairly new. I think I shot this picture in 2017. Those are level 2 chargers, medium speed chargers at the Holiday Inn Express in Fond du Lac. They have 4 chargers there now. Unfortunately, the distribution of chargers is a little lacking. Now, there are 3 levels of chargers. If you plug your car into the wall at 120, that's level 1 charging, which in most cars is good for maybe 5 miles of range per hour of charging. That's overnight. If you have like a Leaf and all you do is commute back and forth to work, you can make that happen. You can make that work. Some people say, oh, it takes so long to charge your car. And people will say, with a straight face, it takes me 5 seconds to charge my car. I put it in my garage, I pop the door open, I plug the plug in, and I go inside and go to sleep. And I come out in the morning, and it's fully charged. It took me 5 seconds. That's a way to look at it. So anyway, level 2, and then you have level 3 charging, which is, have anybody seen this thing? There are 3 of these in town. This one is at the Traced condos in Monona on Broadway. There's several of these. MG&E has 3 of these, I think. The one you most likely would see is at the Kelly's Market, across from the Einsteins at East Wash. And this is my wife and my niece and the Tesla I was talking that we rented in Utica, New York, at the Tesla Supercharger in Utica. Madison was one of the very first towns to get a Tesla Supercharger at Easttown. That was like 3.5 years ago. Because say what you want about Elon Musk, and I will say a lot of things about him. I mean, let's face it. When people diss Elon Musk, the first thing I say is, how many rockets have you landed on Earth lately? He's only up to like 22 now. I mean, but the thing I think is really genius for him is that people are scared of electric cars because they're afraid of being stuck without a charge. So you've got this huge chicken and egg problem. Well, he killed the chicken and the egg by putting in the chargers at the same time he built the car. And the chargers in Madison were not used, but were ready for the first time they drove a Tesla nonstop across the country from California to New York. Now, I'm going to show you a map of chargers here. This is the charge point. This is the map of charge points in Madison. Now, this does not show you all of the chargers because ChargePoint is a company and they want you to use their chargers. But having said that, compared to 5 years ago, this is a huge number of chargers. As a matter of fact, you see one right out here in Lake Mills. The Lake Mills Market has chargers. There are also 2 chargers at the Kohl's by Westtown. There are 3 chargers there. There are 2 chargers at the Kohl's in Johnson Creek. If you think you can make it there, that's great. But I tried that trick once, and they're very, very underpowered. I went there and had dinner at the Pine Cone and came back, and I thought I'd have a full charge, and I had like a half a charge. So I drove home slowly. Now, here are more chargers.
How expensive is the charge, and how fast can you charge?
You just asked me not 1, but 2, how long is a piece of string questions. You know what that means? The variables are everywhere. Well, like I said, for me, it costs nothing because I have my no charge to charge card, which goes invalid next March, by the way. I'm going to be very sad when that happens. I'll give you the rough estimate. EVgo, for their fast chargers, charges roughly $12 an hour. But you can go from basically 0 to 100 in an hour. Now, I mean, that's still less expensive than a tank full of gas. The level 2 chargers, like there's one down in the parking garage right here, are free because the UW is doing a study. The MG&E chargers that are scattered around town, I think, are $2 an hour. So, I mean, it's wildly variable. What was the other question?
Well, I just wondered how long it took you.
Oh, how long it takes.
And then
Once again.
per kilowatt hour, I guess, or whatever. I don't know.
Well, no, that's the problem. You've just hit on a very vexing problem that cars have different size chargers. My first Leaf had a 3.3 kilowatt charger when everybody else's had a 6.6 kilowatt hour charger. So if I was parked there paying by the hour, I was getting half as much electricity as the other guys were. Now my new one has a bigger charger. I don't know this to be true, and I'm not a lawyer, but I've heard this from multiple people. The problem with charging by the kilowatt hour is that electricity is still a regulated utility, regulated monopoly. And as such, individuals cannot mark up electricity. So if you put in I'm just pulling this out of my hat, I don't know what these things cost. You put in your $12,000 charger and then charge people 12 cents per kilowatt hour to charge your car, they're not ever going to pay off the charger, and they're not going to do that very long. So that's still a big work in progress. But once again, it always comes out cheaper than gasoline. Not to mention the fact that it's a lot less polluting. Sir?
Are the charge connectors all standardized with all of these different electric?
No! Yeah, that's a vexing little problem. I should go back to it. Both the EVgo and the ChargePoint high speeds have 2 cables on them. You can only use one at a time. One is called a CHAdeMO plug, which is the Nissan Leaf, the Mitsubishi, the BMW. More than half of the cars have CHAdeMO connectors. The rest of them, like the Bolt, and others have what's called a CCS combo connector, which is basically a level 2 connector with 2 big plugs down here that stick underneath it. But having said that, because there's no standardization, the charger people are smart enough to almost always put both plugs on the charger. But you can only use one at a time. So, and oh, by the way, and Tesla has, of course, their own plug. Now, here's the thing. You can get adapters for CHAdeMO and for CCS to plug into a Tesla, but you cannot get a plug to plug a Tesla plug into any other car. Now, I was going to say, where else do we charge? Oh, by the way, I was going to point out the fact that on this map, all the green dots are level 2 chargers. All the orange dots are high-speed chargers. I mean, when I started doing this, on my first car, I didn't even get a high-speed plug because I thought I'd never use it. Next thing I knew, there were 7 CHAdeMO chargers in Madison. So, and now my new one does have it, and I do use it a lot. And it does not seem to have had a negative effect on the battery, which is good. Here is a picture, a slightly larger scale picture of where the chargers are. This is kind of, because obviously the size of the dots are so huge, it's kind of not representative. But I'm just trying to make the point that charging is getting out there and is growing. And I'll show you the Supercharger Map as well. This is Tesla only, but you'll notice that it seems to track along all of the interstates. And the gray ones you can barely see are either being built right now or have permits for them. So it's going to be everywhere really, really fast. And in Madison now we have 11 supercharger stalls. Sir.
So the charger at your house, is that a 120 or a 220?
That's 220, 40 amps, 50 amps, 40 amps. It's got a plug on it. It's called a J1772, which is the common plug that pretty much everybody uses.
And how much does something like that cost to install to have electricity?
Far less than it did when I've installed it. Let me tell you. You can get the box itself from between $300 and $500, and beyond that, it's just like wiring in a dryer plug. It basically uses the same electricity as your dryer. It is no challenge for any decent electrician. As a matter of fact, I know people who are not licensed electricians that have done it. I wouldn't personally do that. I don't go any higher than 120. 121, no way. 220, no way. Because I mean, let's face it, you can kill yourself and you can miswire it and blow something up. So bad things on both sides. Let's keep moving here. Talk about utilities. What about the utilities? Remember I was talking, you were saying you live in an apartment? Do you know about this? This is the Middleton Municipal garage thing. And MG&E made a deal to put 1,600 panels, 500 kilowatts of panels on top of this thing, and then they sold the capacity by 250 watt blocks. They sold out like that. This is the future, and I'll show you something else because it's getting even better. I didn't even know about this until I happened across this on Channel 3 the other day. Remember this? I said that IKEA had a really big array. They're putting a bigger array at MATC. Now, this is a terrible picture. Right? They're putting in over 5,000 panels at MATC. Now, this is not going to be available for individual purchase. It's just going to pour the electricity into MG&E. And once again, it was only going to do 15% of electricity, but 15% is far better than nothing. MG&E was nice enough to give them a $500,000 grant towards this, which I think paid, if I read the details right, about a third of the cost of the system. MG&E is buying, somebody's building, I think it's the 2 big solar farms. The one down here, the Badger Hollow Farm, is supposed to be something like 60 acres of panels. MG&E is a fractional owner of that, and they also are going to be a fractional of 2 Creeks Solar up there. I don't exactly know what makes a good solar farm, other than the fact that you don't have any trees and you have a southern shot. Also, Alliant has got a slow start, but they're getting into it. Anybody been up to their headquarters over there on the way to Costco, behind American Family? You've been there? It's pretty cool. I mean, I don't know that they get a whole pile of electricity out of it, but by the same token, they're taking a very scientific approach to this and putting up what they call pyrometers, which are these little domes that measure very specifically how much sun is hitting it from different directions at any given time to help optimize their efficiency. And this is a map of their thing here. They have all sorts of different things going on here. This is, I can't even read it here. Anyway, this is a parking canopy. This is where the chargers are. They have those little trees that are supposed to look cute. Personally, I couldn't really care about the cute part. I just want more electricity. So yeah, if you have a couple minutes, if you're going down American Parkway, actually, when there's a new Kwik Trip on the right, if you turn left where the Kwik Trip is, you literally drive right into this. It's worth a look. Oh yeah, one more thing. I wasn't going to gush about Elon Musk, but here I go. Who heard about his giant battery project in Australia? Now, it's not what it sounds like. People think, oh great, he's powering Australia with batteries, which is not the truth. It's even cooler than that, because as I understand it, not an EE, because there's so much coal in Australia, they've got tons of coal plants, and they tend to fail on a regular basis. And when the plant goes down, it screws up the frequency of your electricity. I'm getting this about right there? Sandy, I get this about right?
Probably.
So anyway, Tesla's building these utility scale batteries. And somebody tells Elon Musk about this, and he tells them, I will build you a battery bank which will stabilize all of this for you, and if I don't get it there in 100 days, it's free. If I don't have it online in 100 days, it's free. They did it in 90 days. And the thing, compared to, I mean, just look this up online. I can't even quote it. But it has saved them hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in the 6 months it's been running. I mean, it reacts in 1/10 of a second to variations and fluctuations in frequency. I mean, it doesn't sound sexy like, yeah, it's cooking my stove, it's running my stove, but it's really important. And it's a cost-effective way to integrate. It's also built in with a wind turbine farm. You might have figured that out. A good way to integrate the new stuff with the old stuff. Okay, everybody, hold on to your hats. Well, I figured you'd hiss at least. Solar panel tariffs, 30%. It's not as simple as that. I talked to a couple of people about this, how it's happening. I hear that there was actually a $3 billion floor on this, where the first $3 billion were not going to be tariffed, and above that it was going to be. So apparently the effective is just now showing up. But the people that I talked to said that they would much rather eat the difference in cost of panels and keep installing them than to charge people more and scare them away. Yet one more reason why, if you want solar panels, move now. Move now. Come on, you can hiss the guy, it's okay. There's no TV here, you notice that? I feel so free. So, who remembered the number? $18,000 in what year? 2007. After rebates, $7.50 per watt for this yellow thing. So I got an email from somebody the other day saying, they're thinking about putting solar on, what do you think? And he sends me the proposal. Now remember, this is 2,400 watts for $18,000. This is 9,720 watts for $18,000. This is 10 years later, 11 years later. But it's gone from $7.50 to $1.92 a watt installed. I didn't include the payback page in this thing, but I think it turns around in year 9. And from there on in, it's all gravy. For 10,000 watts. What I wouldn't give for 10,000 watts. I don't have a roof anymore. But yeah, the drop is astounding. And once again, things like tariffs are going to be a headwind that you might not be able to. It's not going to kill this. It's not going to kill this. It's not going to help, but it's not going to kill it. But if you're interested, I would jump. And I was going to put. There are 2 more things I'm going to say here quickly. Hey, it's the top of the hour. 2 more things that have changed. Who here has a gasoline lawnmower? Who here has a gasoline snowblower? Time's up, kids. I'm not advertising for ego. There are other brands out there. They all seem to work, but holy crap, you wouldn't believe these things. This thing is made of plastic. It weighs nothing. It weighs nothing. And I can knock off 7 inches of wet snow, just like that. I mean, it's not a 2-stage. It's not going to throw around a foot. But if you get out there and push it around, and the other problem is that actually it's so light that it's kind of hard to push sometimes. It gets hooked up on the sidewalk cracks a lot. Having said that, no electricity. I calculated that to run this thing till the 2 batteries that you have to use on 2 batteries for snowblowing, to empty those 2 batteries cost me 2.5 cents. Compare that to gasoline. And basically, because I'm generating solar energy, no pollution to speak of. I mean, and it doesn't scream and make this screaming loud noise at 6 in the morning and annoy all your neighbors. The lawnmower is at least as cool. I mean, I have a hill in my backyard, as you guys would remember. Self-propelled, hauls itself up and down. It runs on one of those large batteries. I have never exhausted the battery. And I've mowed my lawn probably, 50 times with this thing now? So, here's my last data point. I shot this picture at a local big box store on April 11th, 2015. I thought, hey, LEDs are getting really, really cheap. $2 a bulb. If you go to Costco these days, you can buy 6 or 8 for $10. Now here's the picture I shot just the other day. Incandescent bulbs are going 4 for $5. The price of incandescents is going up while the price of LEDs are going down. I couldn't be happier about anything in the world than that. These things are heaters that happen to give off a little light. So, let's go back to Broadway, people. Look around at how lucky we are to be alive right now. I'm done. Go see Hamilton. Any question? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about solar shingles. I know you don't have them.
I don't.
Do you know anything about them?
I can't say that I'm going to be authoritative about it. The solar shingles that came out at the time that I was putting solar panels on were really dicey. I mean, they didn't really give you a lot of information about what they put out. And the other thing is that, I don't know. I don't want to slag them because maybe they're a lot better. Now, if you're talking about Tesla's solar roof, I will slag that a little bit because as much as I like Elon Musk and as much as I love the idea of the solar roof, if you're building from nothing, if you're not replacing your roof or doing something, if you're building from zero, you've got a pretty good chance of coming out ahead. But it's not cheap. And the other thing that bothers me about it is that, here's my solar shingle. Nowhere in the web or anywhere have I found out how much electricity this one solar shingle puts out given the amount of light hits it. I've never found out how they connect to each other. I've never figured out how they connect to your system. Now, I'm not a roofer, and I'm not in the construction business. Maybe this is easy to find out for those guys, but it still seems to be a bit of a mystery. Having said that, they are being installed now, and they're being built in Buffalo, of all places, which is kind of cool. So, okay.
So you have a solar, your roof is full of solar panels. What kind of maintenance is required what about if you had to replace your shingles, you have to uninstall all of the... Well,
it's funny you should say that because I have a leak in the roof in the valley. and I haven't found anybody who's been able to fix it yet. Anybody who knows a good roofer who will actually fix my roof, please talk to me later. The fact of the matter is, the life of a shingle underneath a solar panel couldn't be easier. I don't think there's any reason why you have to replace them. If you can find somebody who's willing to start at the edge of the panels and go down, that's pretty much. And you probably noticed that even 4 years ago, my panels look kind of crappy, or my shingles look kind of crappy. I didn't buy the expensive shingles, and I kind of regret it.
What about snow? Yeah, hail.
What about snow? Well, those things have been hailed on several times. Actually, it's funny. It's tempered glass. It just bounces right out. But the funny thing is, behind my hot water panels, I've got a couple of aluminum roof vents that look like golf balls. I mean, the number of dents in these things is ridiculous. So these things have taken a lot of hail, and they just don't care.
What about dust and dirt?
I'm getting old. I used to go up on my roof and wash them every couple of weeks. I don't anymore. I should, but I don't. I mean, I bought a real squeegee and pole-mounted rag, whatever. And I used to go up there and clean them all the time. I really should get up there right now, because especially during pollen season, you can actually, if you're looking at it at an angle, you can see it looks like a yellow thing. But if you're looking to optimize, that's certainly something you should do. I've never run the numbers to see if getting up there and risking my neck and washing them off really makes a quantitative difference. I'm guessing it probably does.
Yeah, you partly covered this already. Is there a significant domestic solar panel industry?
Oh, yeah.
As a way of getting around the tariffs?
Well, that's the problem. Here's where we fall into the weeds. Get the weed whacker. The tariff is not literally on solar panels. It's on solar modules. The little square parts like this that make up solar panels. There are still some domestic solar panel manufacturers. The second set of my panels were made in Milwaukee, of all places. That company's out of business. It went bankrupt. I don't think there's a good answer to that, but I mean, Tesla solar roofs are made in Buffalo and some in California, and there are other American manufacturers, but the modules that make up these things almost all come from overseas. Yes, ma'am.
How is the power generation in the winter? On your...
Oh, I think it's safe to say reduced. For two reasons. Obviously, snow is a thing, but I'm stupid. I didn't put a picture of this in there, but I get up there and shovel them. I mean, I figure I got an investment. It's only like an 8-foot fall to my back deck. I'm not going to kill myself. Probably. But yeah, because my panels are here and there's a tree right here and there's a hill right here, the angle is not good. But by the time February 15th rolls around, we're back in business, and by the time March 15th rolls around, we're going full tilt. I mean, I could show you this live, except for the fact that my e-gauge, the thing that shows me, is currently broken. But it goes up like this, and you can see when winter's coming, and you can see when the spring is coming. And I didn't use the actual number, but the number that I use roughly is that my solar system, on an annualized basis, has made twice as much electricity than I ever used driving the Leaf 12,000 miles. So. It's truly a solar-powered car. It even says so on the license plate. Yeah.
Did you have to reinforce your roof?
Nope, not a bit.
When you first got started in 2007, did you replace the roof shingle?
That's where we got started, actually, because the house was built in 1972, and the sheathing had never been replaced, and the thing needed to tear off. And I said, screw it, if we're going to do it, well, let's do it. And my wife agreed, and so we just tore off the entire roof, put a brand new roof on top of it, and then put the solar on top of that.
When you took the car to Boston, did you have much difficulty finding charging points?
Here's the thing about Teslas. I mean, I can tell you all sorts of things about Teslas, but the Tesla finds the chargers for you. It knows where they all are. It tells you, here's a good story. So we're coming from Boston. We stop at the Supercharger in Springfield, Massachusetts, which is just on the east side of the Berkshire Mountains, right next to a Costco, by the way. So we hop in the car, thing's full. We start going up the Berkshires, and about halfway up the Berkshires, the yellow light comes on saying, "You're not going to make it all the way to Utica, man. You're using up electricity too fast." The machine wasn't smart enough to know that I was going to be going down the other side of the mountain and regenerating, and I made it to Utica with tons of juice. It gets smarter every day. You probably heard the other day that, and my mother-in-law has lived this. The other day, a couple weeks ago, Consumer Reports refused to recommend the Model 3 because they thought the braking was insufficient. It didn't stop fast enough. Well, with their numbers, it was actually correct. It was stopping slower than an F-150 pickup truck. 2 days later, they shoot out an update. The thing stops 30 feet shorter now. Just like that.
That's a software update?
It's a software update.
And downloaded automatically?
Downloaded automatically.
And what did
Consumer Reports turned around and recommends it now. It's funny that this is evolving so fast that magazines are totally insufficient to the task. Sir?
Bruce, you said you generate going downhill, so you're in eastern New York and then downhill. How does that work? I've heard of regenerative braking, but I didn't know that you can generate going downhill.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what it does. I mean, you run an electric motor backwards. It's a generator, and the car lags against the motor, and when it spins it from the energy of the wheels pushing against that, and the electricity that's generated gets pumped back into the motor. And he's got to say something.
Every time you get off the gas.
Yeah, sorry. Every time you get off the gas too. That's right.
It goes into regenerative mode.
And that's usually pretty variable. Excuse me. So does the Prius. The Prius will show you those cute little car icons that are 50 watt hours. When you think about it, that's really nothing, but they're cute.
So it's not just regenerative braking, it's going downhill.
Say what?
Yeah. It's not just when you
no.
braking, it's going downhill.
Anytime you step on the brake, anytime you coast downhill. And there's a gauge in the car that shows it to you.
Yeah, if you're driving it right, if you got the low gear, you could start by putting it in low gear, and then, I don't know about these other ones, but on the Volt, you have a hand brake too.
Oh, on the
regenerative
on the
braking
EV
more.
Smart, they have paddles on the steering wheel which allow you to vary the amount.
So, like you said, you will never use brakes up, ever.
Never,
You
ever.
go from a 55, 60 miles an hour down to a stop almost without any brakes.
Even in the Leaf, they have a mode called B, which just basically jacks up the regeneration. So if I'm going down 51, where 51 and Flom Road intersect, which is where, by the way, if I ever get it in a car, that's where I'm going to get it. Worst intersection ever. So the light, you turn left over here on Badger, on Buckeye, and you're going down there, and the light's guaranteed to be red. So I'll be up to 60 halfway down, and I'll see the light go red. I flip the thing down into B mode. It goes into regenerative. It goes, and you just slow down like a rock, and then it just coasts right to the light. Sir?
So I own some battery-powered appliances at home, lawnmower, but after 5 or 6 or 7 years, the batteries finally die, and it's quite a shock to see how much a new battery costs.
Can be.
So what I now do is I rebuild them by buying the actual battery cells.
You and Ben Nelson should talk.
Cells on Amazon, and then I rebuild them. But where I'm going with this question is, with your electric cars, how long do the battery packs last in the Leaf and in the Teslas? And then when it comes time to replace them, how much is it? And then could you potentially do it yourself?
You can potentially do anything. There's a guy, if you write this down, go to YouTube and look for a guy called Rich Rebuilds. He buys wrecked and flooded Teslas and rebuilds them. He's insane. Now, you have asked the third how long is a piece of string question of the night. If I had Girl Scout cookies, I would give them to you. The answer is, it's insanely variable. The earliest Leafs that were in Texas and Arizona and Southern California lost half of their battery in 6 months because it was so frickin' hot down there that they would be sitting in a parking lot and it'd be 135 degrees cooking these things all the time. On my first Leaf, we lost 20% of the battery in 50,000 miles in a cold climate, roughly cold climate. On the other hand, it is showing pretty consistently that Teslas just do not lose. 150,000 miles on a Tesla, and they lost maybe 4%.
I know you don't like GM either, but the Volt is not, I've had one since 2010,
True.
and it didn't lose anything.
And the difference between the Volt and the Tesla on the one hand and the Leaf on the other hand is that the Volt and the Tesla have active cooling and heating in their packs, whereas Nissan never installed that, and that's a huge problem. Not a huge problem, but it's a problem. If you have an older Leaf and you want to replace the pack, I think a 24 kilowatt pack is now like $5,000, and the 30 kilowatt hour pack is like $7,000. But I mean, having said that, how long do you want to drive the car? I mean, there's no reason you couldn't drive it forever, because let's face it, nothing wears out. I mean, you still have a suspension, okay? You still have suspension and tires, but the drive, you never oil anything, you never, it's just, people don't get that. People are so used to the idea of going to the Valvoline every couple of weeks that when I pick up my Tesla, I no longer have to think about what gas costs. I like that.
What about windshield wipers, though?
Windshield wipers, I can do that. I got a hammer, come on. What else? Anybody else? Beer awaits. Ma'am.
The freestanding solar units at Alliant Energy, are those by zoning? Can you put that on your property?
Oh, you can, absolutely. As a matter of fact, you ever seen design homes, those kind of pre-built buildings that they have advertised by the side of the road? Design homes, as a sideline, for broadcast television and radio, has satellite mounts that track to do things. They also use those trackers to put solar panels on. As a matter of fact, if you drive out towards Dubuque on 151, in Barneveld, there's down the hill, the Deer Hill, it's the hotel and golf course, and you'll see the trackers. I met these guys out at the National Association of Broadcasters convention a couple of years ago, and they said, "Oh yeah, we own that hotel. We power it with those solar panels." They'll sell you a tracker, and they were selling I think it was a 4,000 watt system with a tracker uninstalled for like $15,000. And by the way, trackers are the way to go if you've got the space, because looking in one direction and the sun goes like this, well, you get a couple of good hours, but if the thing can go like this and follow it exactly, you need half as many panels to get the same kind of juice.
Wow, it's almost like sunflowers.
It's almost like sunflowers. Trust a botanist to cough that one. What else we got?
I've heard a little bit about BMW, which gives you a motorcycle.
Electric? Oh, don't worry about that. There are plenty of electric bikes out there. Zero, a company called Zero. Talk about brave people. I think naming my lawnmower Eagle was stupid. Naming the electric motorcycle Zero, that's kind of brave. They are hot. They are really excellent bikes. Don't wait for BMW. They've existed for 5 years now. Actually, this is kind of a sad story. Ben Nelson, who I mentioned, who has the solar garage, and the reason I mentioned him to you is because he was in the middle of a process of rebuilding what's called a Bramo, which was an electric bike that was around for a little while, but it went out of business, and the cells were dead, so he was he's literally rebuilding the packs by hand, and he got the Bramo up and running, and he took it out to take it on a test ride about 3 months ago, and as he was going up the road, a lumber truck pulled out in front of him, he dumped it, and he was in a wheelchair for like 2 months. But he made it up to the energy fair the other day, so he's doing better. I guess the answer to that is motorcycles scare me now. But if you want an electric motorcycle, they already exist.
So you're talking about motorbike. I mean, I'm talking about a real motorcycle.
No, I'm talking about real motorcycle. I'm not kidding. I don't have internet connection. Type Zero motorcycle into your phone. You will find it. These things are like $18,000. They are fast as hell. Some of them have fast chargers. They've got great range, and they're mostly enduro bikes. They're not like Harleys. Harley's coming out with another electric bike, by the way. But it's a real legitimate business. Absolutely. Zero motorcycle.
Sound effects attached?
Funny story. When the Leaf was new, we had a group of people who would get together and have pizza and talk about our Leafs, and it was kind of cool. So one of the guys had gotten out of a Camaro into his Leaf, and he had an iPhone and an app on there, which is hooked to the accelerometer, which made motor noises based on how fast he was moving. Sir.
So I know we're running out of time, and I'm going to go a little bit off of course here, but only because you're here. You said you're a technology geek. I think I'll just ask this question. Do you know anything about, I don't know if this is a hybrid technology, but do you know anything about railroad locomotives?
Well, they're all hybrids. They've been hybrids forever.
Yeah.
They're diesel generators that charge batteries. That run a generator that
run a generator that actually runs the engine.
Right.
That pulls
I'm not sure they actually have much storage on board. Maybe they don't.
They have no storage on board.
Okay.
The diesel, as I understand it, the diesel engine powers an electric generator that then drives the trucks, the wheels of the locomotive that pulls all that weight.
Right.
And my
So
understanding
it's a type of a hybrid.
Say that again?
It's a type of a hybrid.
So my understanding is the reason why they designed it that way is because they're tremendously powerful and they're very, very efficient.
It's torque. It's all about torque.
So my question is, and I know that I think they designed them that way since like 1950.
Oh yeah.
No, Hiawatha was in the late 30s.
Yeah.
Okay, so it always puzzled me for a long, long time why it was that this technology was never really transferred over to trucks and cars until very, very recently. And what am I not understanding about the technology?
Because it's heavy. I guarantee you it's because it's heavy. Because even the motor in the i3, which runs the generator, is like 3 cylinders. I mean, that's a lot of stuff to carry around just to spin a generator. It's not I'm sure that would not pencil out in terms of efficiency in a car size situation. Not to mention the fact that the only reason they're doing that is because trains and Teslas need all the torque they can get from zero RPM. Whereas the reason that you have a clutch in your car is because a gas engine cannot do that. I wish Ben was here because he would love to talk to you about that for hours. No, I'm sure they came to that technology in a smart way because let's face it, it's lasted for 60 years now, and there doesn't seem to be anything on the horizon that's going to replace it.
Maybe it is the weight, but it just seems like that technology could be scaled down to. I mean, a car is not a very heavy thing relative to,
But once again, you don't need to start 5,000 tons in your car, and to that thing, a gas engine and the clutch are fully capable of doing so.
They do have that technology. A Volt's basically that. When the engine runs a generator.
I think probably the better example is the Prius because it has that wacky planetary gearbox which takes torque from either the electric motor or the gas motor depending on what it thinks it can use. But it's very complicated. I mean, that would be complicated in a way which there's not really a use case where you need all that torque to drive to Woodman's, I guess. Last question.
Okay, thank you. Just another comment about railroads. Many railroad companies use, you see solar panels at their signal units along the wayside.
You see them everywhere on almost every kind of remote electronic thing these days.
Mm-hmm. My question was this, though. The prices that you're quoting are still, I think, beyond the range of many people. Do you anticipate the cost of solar vehicles to come down significantly?
Solar vehicles? Or, did you just say solar vehicles or just solar panels?
Well, cars, hybrid type cars.
Oh, you mean electric cars? Oh yeah, absolutely, no doubt about it. I mean, the thing is, the price of cars has not come down, but the capacity of these cars has gone way, way up. I mean, to be fair, I'm getting a Tesla Model X tomorrow. I think it's not a very good-looking car. It's not a great-looking car. I think the Falcon Wing doors are the stupidest things ever invented. Because I have a garage that's 6'6". I can't even open these things in there. But what it is an SUV that has a trailer hitch that can tow my trailer, that I can sleep in the back of and have air conditioning all night. It has a 100-kilowatt battery in it in case the power goes out for a week. I can still run my refrigerator. There are all sorts of reasons why it makes sense to go this way. But once again, when I got my first Leaf, I said to people, I've got a lot of doubters in my family. Believe me, I get a lot of practice. They said, "Oh, that's just not much of a car." And I said, "Dude, this is version 3. Wait till version 6. It's going to blow your mind." The X is about version 5. And plus, by the way, the X includes the autopilot, which is also going to change things entirely. Version 7 is 3 years away, and it's going to blow everybody's mind. It's going to get cheaper from there. And, you know, things have gotten cheaper. The Model 3, my mother-in-law bought, when they get to the point where they've made enough to make their money back, they're going to have a $35,000 version of it. It's a good car. It's fun to sit in. It's comfortable. It's got this wacky dash with only one thing in it, which is a control panel over here. It drives like a rocket. I mean, it corners like a slot car, and it's going to be $35,000. By this time next year, you'll be able to get a $35,000 version of it. But they got to burn up their production their
inventory.
No, they have to amortize their invention costs. Yeah, fixed costs, exactly. Sir.
I made a mistake. It was not the Hiawatha Zephyr. It was the Pioneer Zephyr. It's 1934. You can go see it at the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago.
That's right.
And what it is a diesel engine attached to
a generator,
and it drives
electric motors.
Directly. Amazing. 1934. American leadership.
Say what?
Make America great again.
We've been running diesel electric.
Oh, absolutely. Exactly. Now, if there's one thing you want to be skeptical about, folks, it's fuel cells. We can talk about that at the Tariffs.